Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show, a podcast by SaaStock. Here we interview SaaS founders from around the world who've been there and done that, as they share the ins and outs of how they built their businesses, their operations, their path to securing investment, and more. Our mission with the podcast is to help you, the founder, learn how to scale your SaaS, maintain your well-being, and navigate the complexities of this ever-changing industry. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, and together we'll explore the good, the bad, and the ugly in the journey to SaaS success. Welcome back to the SaaS Revolution Show. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, CEO, founder of SaaStock, also general partner at Back Future Ventures. Joined today by Kieran Flanagan, who's leading AI and GTM at HubSpot. Kieran, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good to have you here. This is ahead of you coming back to SaaStock Europe in Dublin, obviously where you're based, and speaking at the conference on, I think it's the 14th of the 15th of October. So we're looking forward to being back at SaaStock and being back in Dublin, and also seeing you there and listening to your talk. But appreciate you coming on this morning. I think given I'm certainly following you, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are, on LinkedIn and with your podcast as well, putting out lots of great stuff, around AI. Of course, at the moment, you've been like with HubSpot around 12 years, sort of like on and off, mostly on, right?
Yeah, on and off.
Yeah. And obviously now you are, in this role focusing on AI and GTM, and it makes a lot of sense, given the era we're in. Is this the most exciting time for you in your marketing sort of career? And do you think, I guess, like for marketers in general, with what AI is enabling for marketing?
Yeah, I think it depends on your personality type. So I've always kind of jumped onto the latest go-to-market motion. Like when I originally joined HubSpot, it was like inbound and learning that, and that was a new thing. And in all these things, there's like the people who want the new thing, and there's the people who like the old thing, right? So the inbound, there were still people who liked the traditional way of doing marketing. Then I went to kind of lead the kind of PLG, product-led growth transformation of HubSpot. That was the new thing, and that was like the new go-to-market motion, and that's like pretty prevalent now within SaaS. And so to me, like 2 years ago, actually when I first used ChatGPT, the very first time I used it, I just thought everything is going to be different now. I think one of the first posts I put out was Google is in big trouble. Everyone kind of laughed at me, but it was pretty obvious to me that this was going to be pretty seismic. And so I think if you are someone who likes to figure out problems, that's really what I like to do. I don't really see myself as a marketer or anything like that. I just like to solve interesting problems, and usually with new technology. And I think if you are someone who is curious and there's like all these new things you have to figure out, this is a really great time. I think it's there's never been so much change. If I look at what we're doing in HubSpot in our go-to-market, we've never been running so many pilots, so many experiments, even way more than when we were kind of transitioning the company to be product-led growth. But I definitely think that there's a lot of people that are not going to enjoy this or not enjoying this because it's not very clear what your future career is. Like that, I think all careers are going to change quite drastically, and so it's hard to pinpoint what your career path is or how this impacts you. And so I think there's two different camps of people. I'm definitely in this is really cool, everything is changing, it's chaotic, and I like to figure out problems.
Do you think, like, on the career front, that let's say, maybe it's sooner than 12 months' time, that whether it's at HubSpot or other organizations, if those people that are looking for those jobs and those next roles, but they're not on board with AI, are they going to have a problem? I mean, it's hard to say, sort of rubbing a crystal ball here, but you must have a sense of it.
I don't think you can be a top performer in the next 12 to 18 months unless you integrate AI into your workflow. Now, I do think the whole AI is going to replace all humans, and that's kind of been pushed by the Sam Altman and the core LLM founders have kind of pushed that narrative, and then they kind of go back and forth, and they're like, oh no, this is kind of overblown. I think GPT-5 was a big wake-up call for people, right? Everyone was kind of on the edge of the seat. Me and my good friend Kip were like WhatsApping each other on the YouTube live, and it was waiting for this incredible moment where you're like, everything is different now. And I don't think GPT-5 delivered upon that. And I think people have kind of reset expectations to say, actually, we need a lot of we still need a lot of people who can use AI. And so like everyone now on LinkedIn, one of the most popular content formats is just to post whatever jobs OpenAI are hiring for. But there was an interesting one like this week where they're hiring like a content strategist, right? And if you actually go back in time a couple of months, 3, 4, 5 months, I think Sam and these other people would have pushed that AI would replace all content creators and AI could create the content. And now OpenAI themselves are hiring a content strategist. It's a good example why you still need the human craft and the human skill set in a lot of times, but that needs to be powered with AI as an assistant. I think it has to be integrated into your workflow. So I do not think you can be a top performer in the future unless you really figure out how to use AI within your day-to-day work.
Yeah, and maybe a personal like good example of that. I got very excited when I've seen some of these AI, videos and like trailers that have been played either at Super Bowl or we see them on LinkedIn with some SaaS companies that are creating them. And then like people talking about VO3 and it's like, okay, like I'm just going to I've got this idea, create this video, and then just realizing how super difficult it is. And I just spent time, like going down a rabbit hole and all I'm creating is like a 5-second clip, which is actually like not what I want, but you need a person behind that with the the video editing skills, but now AI video editing skills to actually create this, right? So you still need the people to use the tools, right?
Well, this is actually an important part because I spend a lot of time. I'm pretty active angel investor in pre-seed and seed stage companies. And because of my profile, I see a lot of like creative AI tools that can do a lot of creation for marketers or other people. And or like other disciplines. And I'm someone who I love VO3. Like I'm trying to work on like a little mini 5-minute documentary only done through VO3. And the first thing I had to figure out actually is how you can keep characters across 8-second clips, right? Like because what it tends to do is like the characters will look different because you have to replicate them each and every time across 8-second clips. And I figured that out. But where I'm going with this is you mentioned something really important where most of these kind of tools fall down it's actually the editing, right? So AI is able to create like a one-shot version of whatever concept you have. But everyone really needs to edit that and finesse that. And AI is usually terrible at that. Now, I know Google will come out with Nano Banana, the new image editing model, and it is very, very good. But you still need the human craft to take something that AI creates, and I think add like the 20 to 30% of magic that really differentiates it from everything else. And I think that's a pretty good example is when AI creates a content asset and you still need to do a bunch of editing to craft that magic.
It should be, I guess, then, with all these tools, and if we talk about specialization, right, it should then create a lot of opportunities because if people are looking for, whether it's AI videos, AI content strategists or was it content creators like OpenAI are looking for, at the moment, those that can get on board with that now, hopefully the future should be bright for them and a lot of demand, for this skill set. It may become quite commonplace in, a year or two. But, I guess kind of for now, like if you can master, a certain discipline with an AI, certain tools, probably demand is going to be, reasonably high, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's also like the other thing that happens in all of these kind of paradigm shifts is there's new roles that gets created, right? Like if you think about it, some of the new roles, like off the top of my head, I was actually just looking because I was working on a post around this. I'll find it in a little bit, but some of the ones that kind of come top of the mind. AI trainer, right? That doesn't exist prior to AI. So what does an AI trainer do? Well, what's happening is you have all of these agents you're integrated into your go-to-market. So you might have an agent that kind of is really good on your website and can actually sell to website visitors and is trained to sell to those types of visitors your product. And then you have another agent that is able to come in your app and cross-sell and upsell your customers. That agent has to be retrained to do that skill set. And then you have another agent that is supporting customers. Well, that agent has to be trained on how to support your customers. So each and every time you have one of these agents, you need someone who can train the agent, gather all of the feedback and continuous to like train it and refine it over time. That's an example of a brand new role that exists because of AI. And so there's going to be all of these new roles that exist in the go-to-market motion that we don't even know. And so I think that AI will not just, it will disrupt some jobs, likely will make some jobs, I'm not sure, totally obsolete, but you definitely will need less people, but it will create many more new jobs. And I think that's what's going to be interesting. That's what I find fascinating is starting to see all of these new kind of roles appear because of the way AI is changing the way we work?
I guess mostly over the last 12 months, over the last 2 years, so much hype, there's a lot of positivity around AI. With that, there's also, some negativity, some skepticism in the market. There was a recent MIT, I think, report that 95% of AI projects are not really producing the results that are expected, and I think that's impacted a little bit in the market. What's your take on that?
Yeah, and so I want to caveat this with that I haven't really looked through that report, but there were two reports. There were two reports. There was a McKinsey report, and the McKinsey report, I think, was every AI project was failing other than those implemented by McKinsey. And so that one I will set aside. And then there was the MIT one, which I think was grounded in more facts and data. Now, there's a couple of really important things about that report. And again, just from skimming through it, I think it was conducted in January 2024, prior to reasoning models. And so that's pretty outdated, right?
Yeah.
In where we are today and where we were then is totally different. And we've seen when I first kind of went back to HubSpot and we started to kind of integrate AI across the go-to-market, one of the kind of frameworks or mental models that I wanted to have for everyone was we're going to go after the most transformational use cases that we believe will be the most impactful in the future, even if the models cannot fulfill that need today, but we're going to build the organizational rigor, the infrastructure, and start to integrate that into our go-to-market motion. And when we get updates in the models and put the models live, all we have to do is plug them in, we get that benefit. That has proved to be true, that some of the things that we did that we were in pilot mode, they didn't work that well, but we had all of the work done and we could plug the models in. We started to see huge gains over the past 6 months in particular. So when you look at that report, it's kind of outdated in terms of how capable the models are. The other thing that really is important about that report, and this is the part I had it on my list to dig into this week, is it's the adoption part, right? So a lot of the problems isn't just, there's two other problems I would point out. It's number one is adoption. Getting people to use the AI functionality you're either bringing in through vendors or you're piloting is a really interesting thing, because in a lot of cases, people see AI as a means to displace them. And so sure, the leader is really excited. I'm going to bring in AI and make this team much more productive. But when you go all the way down the chain for the people who have to use the AI and are actually integrated into the workflows, first of all, it's hard to get anyone to change their behavior. User behavior is one of the hardest things to shift. And then the second thing is, if you're using that, you're am I just training this AI model to do my work? And in some cases, yes, that's probably true, right? So adoption is a really complex problem to solve. And then the third one is, there's an interesting thing. Do you bring in vendors or do you build a lot of the custom AI functionality yourself? And that's a hard thing to figure out. One of the problems with bringing in vendors is a lot of these companies are wrappers, UX wrappers around prompts. And because the prompt is trying to serve many, many companies, it's kind of pretty generic, right? It doesn't do a great job. Whereas if you actually customize this, you as a company have a ton of nuance. Maybe your outreach tool, maybe whatever tool you're using, there's a special kind of way that you want to do it. So you want to refine that prompt. And that's a reason that you would actually end up customizing a lot of this software yourself versus buying something off the shelf. But customizing it adds a huge burden onto the company. You have to build that. You have to maintain it. You have to make it as good as what's available in the market. So there's some other interesting issues that arise with bringing AI into the company that isn't just, is the AI capable enough, the model capable enough? And I think the takeaway everyone took from the MIT study was, well, AI is just not good enough. And I think there's just more complexity in terms of making AI work within the company than just the model's capabilities.
Can you give an example then, of what's produced results for you? Something you've done specifically within HubSpot that's worked well for you, and what you can share around that?
Yeah, so we've integrated into, again, I think the interesting thing I'm going to give you is there's going to be no surprises, no kind of hidden surprises here, in that we've really integrated data as a big part of it, right? So I'm going to start with data, because the context layer, your data layer really matters. Your data hygiene, the quality of your data, the quality of your data sources, they really will dictate a lot of the success you have around AI. So one of the examples would be on our website. We were able to integrate AI into a lot of the ways that you interact with HubSpot. And when people think about that, they're like, that's a terrible experience. But you kind of remember the chatbot era, right? With that chatbot workflow era. And it was kind of very it was like a far worse experience than like interacting with a human. AI is much, much better. And so when we look in the back end, we can see the way people feel about interacting with AI is not too dissimilar to how they feel about interacting with a human. And that is an example where you have to have great context, because when someone joins and they start to chat with your AI, if you have context about where they came from, where they visited, any kind of stuff you have in your CRM, you can have a much more personalized conversation. So we have an AI bot that's able to do a ton of support, deflection, and then also able to book meetings for the sales team. So they actually can do sales conversations. Personalization has worked great for us. We've integrated AI through all of the personalization, prospecting, email workflows that we do. We've seen like huge, I'm surprised by some of the gains. So we have a ton of emails that go out to prospect to different types of customers. We say our prospects and customers, we segment them in all these kind of different ways by fit and intent. And then we use AI to like really personalize the messaging. And we've seen anywhere between like 300 and 500% increase in booking meetings, right? Just by, again, data quality, really perfecting the prompts. Like I want to give the team a ton of credit. This is one of the things I will say that I maybe got wrong is I've always been on you have to prove something with a 6-week cycle. And if you can't prove it, you should move on to something else. Whereas the prompts that really started to work in terms of personalization took us like 3 to 6 months. So there's some things, again, you should just take a bet on and get rigor and discipline around. That's worked really well. We have some other like interesting experiments, I think, that are probably in the kind of real bleeding edge, where we have a digital avatar that is starting to do first kind of interaction with prospects. Like the kind of first sales conversation you have is with a digital avatar, and that avatar is trained to actually do a bunch of discovery qualification and give you all the answers before you actually interact with a salesperson. What's really interesting about that is when I stood that pilot up, I was like, is consumer behavior really ready for a digital avatar? Like, are people going to think that's really weird? And the average engagement rate was 8 minutes. We had someone that talked to the avatar for 2 hours. I don't know what they were talking to the avatar for 2 hours about, but like the engagement rate was through the roof. It worked really well. And over time, we saw better close rates. And so there's some examples. I can go through many more, but I want to like pause and see if there's like if you have any questions. But I can go through some
I mean, just curious, the digital avatar, is this a internally built tool, or is this something that you guys have trialed that is, out there in the market, and can you share?
Yeah, we're using a vendor called OneMind.
Okay, yep.
Give them a shout. They're yeah, you've probably heard them. Amanda's CEO, she's great CEO. So yeah, we've a great relationship with OneMind. They've helped us to build a bunch of custom use cases. And again, it's an example of we probably started using OneMind pretty early in terms of where consumer behavior is. But what we want to do is find the signal, and over time, we believe the technology and the consumer behavior will catch up. And we see, I was surprised by how engaged people were off the bat with the avatar. And again, the avatar, you can do a photorealistic version. You can just do the orb that you don't need the photorealistic version. But I do think one of the bets that I have a concerted belief that will transform the way B2B, kind of just B2B go-to-markets work is multimodal, which is where the agent can kind of talk to you, hear what you're saying, do video, and then see your screen. And I think that fundamentally changes the way people are going to buy software. And so we have a lot of multimodal pilots up and running to see where it can come to fruition across the go-to-market.
Well, I guess with the AI tools, some of them are relatively inexpensive to use, but also if you start to use a lot of AI tools, all of a sudden your stack, is becoming pretty big. You're running a lot of pilots, can be quite expensive, right? And so consideration around budget, especially if you're a smaller company, is something that our listeners kind of need to think about. If HubSpot, obviously a much bigger company than I think a lot of our listeners who are a bit earlier stage. What do you think is something that our listeners could be doing around or should be doing around AI with GTM that you're also doing, or what you're seeing in the market?
Yeah, and I think one of the things we try to do is, because there's still a lot of noise to signal in AI, which is like you can stand up a ton of pilots and only one of them will work, and that's an expensive way to try to find signal within the noise. And so the reason we run so many pilots is because we have a go-to-market platform, and so we're trying to find the AI use cases that work that we can then integrate into the platform, and that's kind of what we've been doing. And so our go-to-market runs ahead of the platform, and so the platform can integrate things that have that we can bring to smaller customers, and we can be sure that works. And the reason I'm saying that is because if I'm a smaller customer, I would probably just bet on the things that I know are working, and I have enough signal externally to tell me that these things will work. And so, I can't emphasize enough that if you have bad data, it doesn't really matter what I'm going to tell you, because your AI is not going to do is probably not going to produce great results. So I think trying to solve the data layer, trying to make sure you have a good context layer, which means that making it easy to load context into the different AI initiatives you're standing up. The personalization one really works, like wherever you want to like bring it to life across your go-to-market motion. But again, gets talked about a lot externally, AI to be able to do kind of what the SDR does or the BDR does, so warm outreach, cold outreach. I think cold outreach is really difficult now because it's so saturated with AI. What I would say is the more creative you can be with data and don't just follow the same sort of outreach templates that everyone's using, you can still get some pretty large gains, but you have to be much more creative with your kind of data use. I think AI for support deflection, it really works. Again, not groundbreaking here. One of the ways that we've integrated AI, if you have a small sales team, is like AI to enable sales to do more selling versus kind of sales admin. So like call prep, deal summaries, the ability to actually preload the CRM record with like core talking points. So what we do a bunch of regression analysis, and we can say, hey, like this customer or this prospect is very similar to this customer that you closed, and these were the core selling points that really resonated with that customer. And so when the sales rep gets on the call, they actually have all of that preloaded in front of them, so they can do a much more consultative sales call. And again, that's not, for a smaller company, that is possible, whether you use an off-the-shelf tool that can do some of this for you, or you kind of just build some custom internal tools that can do that for you. And so enabling your sales team to do more consultative selling really works if you take that unstructured data and turn it into insights for the sales team. There's some of the ones, I think if you were a smaller company, maybe what you spend your time on is trying to, because there's two things we're talking about here. That is how you integrate AI into the core go-to-market, but then it's how you integrate AI into your go-to-market team's workflows, right? So how I can just be a better go-to-market professional because I use AI day in, day out. And I think if I was a smaller company, I might start there, right? I might say, hey, like, I want you to, here's a seat of whatever, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. I really want to start to integrate this into the way you work so I can get, 20, 30% more productivity of the team I already have.
What are your thoughts around AI and content marketing in terms, maybe specifically around, let's say on LinkedIn right now, there are a lot of CEOs, there are a lot of founders, but not just, right? Other roles that are using posting regularly, on LinkedIn, building out great audiences and using that, as kind of top of funnel for their business. One example, Adam Robinson, you've probably seen a lot of his content, over the last sort of couple of years. I would have said, and feel free to challenge me on this, but I would have said, or I felt like a couple of months ago, that if you'd use AI to create a LinkedIn post, that people would have noticed it. It wouldn't have got the right engagement, and maybe there would have been a little bit of because they noticed it, pushback with people saying this is written by AI. This wasn't written by Kieran Flanagan or Alex Theuma or Adam Robinson. What I actually noticed this week, I think whether it was even sort of yesterday, for instance, Adam Robinson is openly talking about he's just getting AI, Claude, I think it was, to write his, write like Adam Robinson, his LinkedIn posts, where he probably spent a lot of time each week, prior to that, creating this, and now he can spend more time as a CEO, on the product. So what are your thoughts about what's changed there? Is it's just got better? It's got more acceptable over time, and should everybody be doing it? And then is everything going to be written by AI, and will that affect engagement on LinkedIn?
Okay, so this is one of the places I've spent a lot of time, because a year ago I was teaching people how to really use AI in a novel way to do short form content. And it was basically, what I was trying to show is you can build kind of write-in style guides, and then you can use that to differentiate your content so it does not look like it's generated through AI. And so even a year ago, if you did that through Claude, it would have been hard to spot something was created with AI. I think the problem is a lot of people, they just go in with a basic prompt, they ask the LLM to create something, and it's so easy to tell that was created by AI. Now, what happened to me personally, and I'm not saying that this my reach is big enough that this influenced lots of people on LinkedIn, but we did a pretty popular show with Dharmesh from Marketing Against the Grain, and what was really interesting, I think that episode has like 250 views. between RSS and YouTube, and I give away like the actual method to do it. Like I wasn't giving it away because it was like, oh, well, this is like some of my secret sauce. And I give it away because we wanted to do that on the show. And what was really interesting to me was how quickly my different writing styles were replicated on LinkedIn. Like I literally could see people had taken that, and it was like really easy to spot. So I was like, okay, well, this stuff is like, the challenge is when one person does it, or, you know, when you're doing it, it's like hard to spot. And then when you have everyone doing it, it's really easy to spot. And AI is able to templatize things so much faster. And so your tactics spread so much more rapidly. Now the models have got a lot better. I launched a small little writing tool as a test, took that down, and I have a far bigger writing tool coming out actually in the next month, which is specifically for actual founders and people who want to create content. And the models are much, much better. Like they actually are able to create a bunch of content that is better than most people, but I would still advocate for this. Like this is my core thesis, even for someone who's going to use my product. I would never copy and paste content from AI for two core reasons. I still think it is easy to spot, actually. Maybe it's just because I spend so much time in AI for content creation and I've created software around it, but I think it's very easy to spot. And then the second thing is, there was another great study, which I think is one of the more important studies around AI, of like how AI makes you dumber, for better words. Like it just like, if you continue to outsource the AI, you lose part of your skill or part of your craft. And I think writing and content is going to be one of the most important skills you can have, because everything is going to get noisy. People will gravitate towards people, which is why founder content is working so well, because people don't even really want the brand content anymore. They want the human-led content, which is like starts with the founder. And so I think content is a really important craft to master, and outsourcing that to AI to copy and paste feels like you will diminish your ability to like really do that over time. Now, in this case, does the founder need to create it? No, they can have like an internal ghostwriter who can like use AI as an assistant, but I would never copy and paste content from AI. I'm not like, I think Adam is an incredible LinkedIn creator, so this isn't to do with what he's doing, but I just think if en masse people start to use AI as their core like content creator, it just will be easy to spot, because AI will create content in the same way that for you, as it creates for me, as it creates for everyone. Like it's all going to look very similar.
Yeah, no, important points there, I think, because like, you know, as a founder myself, you know, constantly trying to get better at writing, you know, to do more, because, you know, get the right strategy and cadence and find like my North Star. You know, writing, it's a skill, you know, it's, I guess, kind of like highlights or indicates, you know, a level of like intelligence as well, like develops you. And then, as you say, and I hadn't really thought about it sort of too much, that if you start shifting these sort of skills to AI to save time, to be more productive, then it's clearly going to be, you know, impacting development. And then if, I don't know, a year or two's time, you have to get back to writing yourself, you're going to be a bit of a block, right? Like, oh shit, right. You know, I'm really out of practice. And perhaps it's maybe akin to using the calculator to do maths and simple equations, instead of like, you know, thinking about it in your brain and just kind of looking for the easy route, right? So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I think a great writing tool, like this is what I'm trying to do anyways, a great writing tool should give you building blocks, different like building blocks that you can organize in different ways, and then you can craft those building blocks to speak to your audience. But I think just like verbatim copy and pasting, you just lose some of your critical thinking skills, and you lose some of your ability to like figure out how to create content and craft content that really resonates with an audience. And I think they're important skills to have.
Well, it's going to be a good soundbite here. AI makes you dumber, according to Kieran.
Yeah. I do think we're going to swing, like I think in companies, we will swing too far the other way. And I think you'll start to have people that just copy and paste all of their like internal documentation and memos and critical thinking. It will all look like AI stuff. And I think that's, you know, and then at some point we'll get into the middle where we should be.
I wanted to, and like I still will, but like I wanted to ask you about recent posts you did about your AI GTM stack, but I think actually it's almost a whole other podcast, right? You could probably talk for 30 minutes on that. Maybe you could just share a couple of tools that you're using, AI tools that from a GTM perspective you really love, that you think, you know, other marketers should be looking at. I know you shared one mine sort of earlier, but yeah, if you could share maybe some of those from your GTM stack.
Yeah, like internal tools, obviously ChatGPT, I'm a big user of it. I was a big user of Claude. I still do use Claude. The reason ChatGPT really stole me as a user was memory. They were first with memory. I think memory is a moat for LLMs. The more I've used it, the better it just serves me. And I think that's like an interesting thing to think about for AI in general, in that memory is such a retention, if a great feature for retention. And so AI, ChatGPT is like a great thought partner. I shared some of my prompts in that. It's like I get it to challenge my thinking, challenge my strategy. It can create updates. A lot of what I like AI for is actually creating all the kind of comms updates I have to do. But some of the other tools, and so I use GenSpark. Now I will say I had like people reach out to me from Gamma and other people who use Gamma, which is another tool. GenSpark is a tool that actually does a lot of things, but it can create decks, slide decks. They have a ton of agents. I have a ton of respect for that founder. They're just shipping. They're kind of just like on a rocket ship, shipping tons and tons of different agents. But basically what you can do is you can craft prompt in ChatGPT of a deck you want and just give it to GenSpark. And it was like the best text to presentation creator I had come across. Like it was really professional looking slides. I have since used Gamma. Actually, in the last week, someone asked me to really try it out again, and it's actually incredible. So I will put the two of them up there as like really great tools.
The founder's also doing great content on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to start to use that more now. I'm actually creating a deck with it now to make sure I understand it. I think Lovable or Replit, because one of the big things I'm a believer in is, one of the things I love is AI allows us to go from memo to demo, right? Like memo is made famous by Amazon. Jeff Bezos works really well, 6-page memos, describe your thinking. But what's really cool now is you can just bring it to life in a lot of cases through a prototype. And I think that is a really cool thing. And so Lovable and Replit are tools of mine to bring things to life. Notebook LM, I don't think people understand what a great tool that is from Google. It's freaking incredible, right? And so one of the things you're able to do is, if you have a large project and you're going to throw, I do this, right? I walk my French Bulldog and I have this like big project I'm trying to get my head around. And so what you can do is you can take all of the documentation, you can put it into a folder in Notebook LM, you can say, create an audio overview, and it creates a two-way podcast. And it has, so it's engaging, right? It's not just like a audio transcription. And not only that is you can actually call into the podcast as the user and ask questions of the host about your project. And now they've just released video overviews. So I don't know if people have seen this, but it basically brings it to life in a video tutorial about anything you want. And so Notebook LM is an incredible tool for knowledge workers, and I think it's one that's probably underused. I use Grok a lot for content research. So like what people have asked me, like, why would you use Grok over these other LLMs? Well, Grok has access to the X data. And so if you're saying, hey, I have like a prompt that basically says, for people like this, what are they sharing or engaging with over the past couple of weeks, so I can see what their content habits are. And then the other one I'll just quickly mention, you mentioned already, is like VO3 is my most fun tool, because when I think about my trajectory here, like ChatGPT was the first time I was like, here's a text model that I can do really amazing creative things with. And then all of the image tools I thought were pretty bad until ChatGPT's image gen came out. And that was the next moment where I was like, wow, now I can do like incredible creative things with images. I built this little ad tool that would allow people to create ads really quickly using that model. And that's how I feel about VO3. I'm like, wow, now I can create video. To your point, there are a lot of quirks that you have to figure out. There's a tool that Google have called Flow, and Flow allows you to extend scenes. And so if you do want to create multiple 8-second clips, that's the best tool that you can use. And now Nano Banana is like the kind of next generation of like image editing, because that was the big flaw of ChatGPT Image Gen. It was a terrible editing tool. And so they're kind of like some of the ones that I'm using. And I still do use Claude. I use that as a writing assistant sometimes. And then I have an internal seat of all of these tools. And so I've Claude connected up to a lot of my internal data sources. And so I do use it for certain use cases. I could be a bit bizarre that I use ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and Grok, but I like using all of them for different things.
Yeah, I'm still only using ChatGPT, but I know people like use multiple, Claude, use Grok, etc. Like yourself. So, I mean, do you think I should be, or do you think it's just fine, like, to just use one?
I think it's probably fine. Like, I suspect it's overkill on my part. It's, again, because ChatGPT has memory, I think, and its models, I can't think of it. Like, again, Grok has certain things that it does better, in particular because it has access to that data source. But I can't think of a single thing I would try to convince you of that you can't do with ChatGPT. For me, there's just these weird, because I've been doing it so long, using these different models, there's just these weird quirks that I like about different models. But if I could only keep one at the moment, it's probably going to be ChatGPT. Again, not again because of model capabilities. I think Gemini is an incredible model. I think Claude models is incredible. Grok, I don't know, it's weird. Grok got, like, crushed everyone on benchmark, but I have not found it. My experience with it is not what the benchmarks would tell me, but I still think it's a good model. But the memory thing is just a game changer for me.
Maybe McKinsey did the report on Grok.
Yeah. I don't know what. Yeah. Like it's I think some of the models have really figured out how to like beat benchmarks.
Just wrapping up, Kieran. So you're like I mentioned, you're coming back to SaaStock Europe. You've spoken a few times. I can't remember how many, but a few times, and so appreciate that. What will you be speaking about? Why should people come to listen to your talk and perhaps the SaaStock Europe?
Yeah, I'm going to give all signal, no noise. And so what I'm going to do is like give you actual AI use cases that you can just copy and paste, take home and start to do. Because I think that's what people really are looking for right now is, okay, like I understand I don't need to be told AI is important. I don't need to be told that I need to use AI or integrate AI across my go-to-market. I don't need to be told like this is a paradigm shift. I hear all this. But I've been using AI for the past 6 months, 12 months, and I just cannot figure out how to get any kind of real traction or value from it. And so what I want to try to do is like bring in, if I was building an AI native go-to-market, here's exactly the use cases that I would stand up, and here's how I would do it, and here's like some of the signal that we've already captured to show that this is worth doing, and then probably give you like two or so core bets that I would make in terms of like where I think model capabilities underserved today, but will overserve in the next 12 months. And so you can start to like build rigor and operational excellence around them and start to like go after them.
Amazing. Well, sounds excellent. I will look to be there myself. You'll have to be there to get this from Kieran. So we'll see you at SaaStock Europe. So thank you so much for being a great guest on the show today. Really enjoyed the conversation. Lots of great takeaways, I think, for our audience. And we'll see you at SaaStock Europe in October. Thanks so much, Kieran Flanagan from HubSpot.
Cool. Thanks for having me.